Hello, you're watching CGTN live stream. Welcome to APEC Talks. This is a special coverage of CGTN on APEC, which is being held in Bangkok, Thailand. And now we are at the venue of the CEO Summit, whose conference day starts today. And today we're going to talk about development, the sustainable development and high quality development. And for more of this, I'm very pleased to be joined by two guests today. Mr. Raymund Chao, Chairman of PwC Asia Pacific in China. Welcome, Raymond. And also Mr. John Denton, Secretary General from the International Chamber of Commerce, or ICC. Welcome, gentlemen. Let's start with you, Mr. Denton. What's special about this year's summit is that it's the first offline meetings of CEO Summit since the 2020, where the pandemic broke out. So we just heard the opening speeches by the Prime Minister of Thai. So what are your observations of this speech, and what signals is the APEC sending to us this year?
Well, first of all, Weiwei, great to be with you, and great to meet you, Raymond. It's good to be with you. A couple of things. First of all, I have the pleasure of formally serving as a member of the APEC Business Advisory Council, and I chaired finance and economics there for a number of years, and I created things like the Asia Pacific Financial Forum, the Asia Pacific Infrastructure Partnership, and I did that as an Australian representative at the time, but now I'm based in Paris and I have a global responsibility. The ICC is in 170 countries. We represent more than 50 million businesses. More than 70% of the ICC is in developing and emerging markets. So we have a particular interest in the whole concept of inclusion, development. And when I come to a place like Bangkok for the discussion around APEC, the reason I come here and why I'm so glad to see so many other people here is that APEC has enabled economic growth at a level which has been quite significant. And we now, when we look at the global world and we look at the sputtering rates of growth in other regions, we still look to the APEC region for the growth. So I'm very excited to be here, and I'm very excited to hear what the Thai leader has said today. I've actually come straight here from the G20, where I chaired finance and infrastructure, and before that I was in Sharm el-Sheikh, where actually we crowd in the private sector for the climate talks. So I'm very happy that there's actually a series of quite significant discussions about the future of the world economy, but importantly about the future of the world taking place simultaneously. And APEC, because of the nature of this organization, it is not as rule-bound as the European and others. This forum and the environment itself, which has been curated by the APEC leaders and by the APEC community, and importantly by the APEC business community, has enabled, I think, a level of focus on effective economic growth, and we want to see that continued. So I'm hoping over the next day and a bit while I'm here that I'll be able to participate in shouting out and arguing for the areas that need to be focused on moving forward to ensure that growth continues. But we need APEC and we need its growth to keep the world going. Yeah,
of course, there will be a wide range of topics being discussed here. And Raymond, what is the significance of the APEC this year, given the current, global economic recession?
Great, thank you, and great to be here today with you. Look, this is after a number of years with the pandemic, we have not been able to get together, and I think the APEC CEO Forum is so important in terms of, this is one of the very few platforms where you allow the business sector working with the government sector. There's an open dialogue. You're focusing on the issues and working together in terms of addressing some very significant issues going forward. And actually, there's three words this morning from the speeches this morning. The 3 E's, which is very important. It's about embracing, it's about engaging, it's about enabling. And you think about what this platform is all about, the APEC CEO Forum, that's what it's trying to do, right? We're embracing the future. We're going to try to bring the very significant issues of dealing with ESG, specifically climate issues, into the growth agenda, into the government agenda in terms of addressing sustainable growth going forward.
Yes.
And this platform is about engaging, and it's so important to engage and work together. And those words came out time and time and again. It's about working together. How does the business community work with the public sector and work with organizations so that we can put our best brains together to collaborate and work and build trust and hopefully find the sustainable solutions going forward. So I think this is great, and it's very important. It's great to be back together, CEO friends, and actually face-to-face talk about very significant issues and try and work together to deliver sustained outcomes.
Weiwei, Raymund makes a really sound and very profound point here. One of the issues that has really separated APEC as a regional economic group has been its openness to engage the business community. It's actually quite fundamental, because it was APEC, the leaders of APEC, who decided to create a specific fit-for-purpose business group, the APEC Business Advisory Council. And the idea of that was that each nation in the APEC region would appoint 3 business leaders who would then participate in dialogue and then bring together and bring forward to the leaders, unfiltered, without officials present, the key priorities. Because what the APEC leadership recognized is that if you want economic growth, you have to do it hand in hand with the business community. I actually had the pleasure, as one of those leaders, to meet with President Xi a number of times, because he would participate as an individual leader in those meetings, and we would talk with him, and previously with President Hu Jintao. So we're able to have a direct dialogue with him about the 3 or 4 key areas that they needed to focus on. And the APEC Business Advisory Council, I actually used as the base model when I recommended the creation of the Business 20 to support the G20. The Business 20 has more promise, but it still hasn't delivered at the same level as the APEC Business Advisory Council.
And I would just add to that. I just came from the B20, and that's so important in terms of the business community working together and focusing on, and we're the knowledge partner on some of the studies that's very relevant, and putting them together to put forward to the government ministries. So for example, sustainability, we keep talking about it, financing, infrastructure, that's so key to this region in terms of driving sustainable growth. And so we've been working with the business community to put together those papers, those thoughts, recommendations, going to the government and to debate and to think about, and hopefully results in some policies and directions which is going to drive that sustainable growth for this region, for the Asia Pacific.
Yes, exactly. The APEC actually provides an opportunity for the CEOs and economic leaders to face-to-face discuss the issues and to push the collaborative projects. Right now, let's talk about China's role in that, because we talk about the sustainable development, and now China aims to pursue what's called a high-quality development, and that aims to focus more on the quality than the quantity, and to focus on openness and free trade. So how do we understand this concept, and how does that concept of high-quality development resonate with the sustainable development?
That's a great question. Thank you. China has obviously has been an amazing story over the last 30 years in terms of achieving very substantial growth through globalization. Actually, globalization plays a big part in it. And at this juncture, China is focused on building quality growth. And what does that mean? That means that we want to bring in not just talking about producing quantity. We're talking about embracing technology, bringing in IT, AI into everything we do to produce that quality growth going forward. And that also means quality growth means being a lot more embracive and bringing in a wider group of organizations, not just a specific sector, but hopefully you're creating more creativity, innovation into what we do to generate that growth going forward. So hopefully it would develop a new generation of innovative enterprises, creativity, develop more solutions, bringing more IT, AI into what we produce, how we grow going forward.
What about you, John?
I see the key to quality development as really around innovation and sustainability. And from my point of view, innovation requires a kind of openness, openness to new ideas, openness to actually bringing people in, movement, openness to change, all these sorts of elements. Because if you want the kind of innovation that will drive this high quality development, you actually have to ensure that the market is open. And I think that's a really important piece. And that's what I hear when I hear President Xi talk about that at the 20th Party Congress as part of his speech. That's what I heard when I heard him launch that idea at the United Nations. I heard a leader who understands that if you want economic development, at the heart of it needs to be innovation. But to deliver innovation, there needs to be an ability to actually have openness and engagement with the world. Because let's face it, the source of power in the 21st century is actually going to be around which power is the most connected. And being open to connectedness is going to be key here. And mixing that with this critical issue of sustainability is one that's very important to the world. The fact that China has signed on and is promising to help deliver the Sustainable Development Goals is a wonderful thing, because frankly, we're not on a trajectory that's going to deliver those. So we need more innovation. We need to change the trajectory so that we get closer to it. And that's going to require a few other things as well. We need to change the financial architecture of the world so that it actually supports the Sustainable Development Goals. But maybe we can come back to that, because I've got some thoughts on that as well.
Exactly. And you know what, the development also needs the global cooperation, our joint efforts. And you know, the Chinese President Xi Jinping also proposed what's called a Global Development Initiative in 2021, and that gives development a priority. And that also try to expedite the implementation of the UN 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development. So can you share with us, for example, one or two examples of your company or your organization's projects in China in this field?
Happy to do that. Look, obviously the point about when you want to drive sustainable growth in the current environment, that openness is very important, and China is very clear. President Xi's report was very clear in terms of China will continue to open and will be open wider for economic development and opportunities for everybody in the China market. So that openness is actually very important as part of this driving this growth. So working collaboratively across the world, the global cooperation is actually very important. So you see some of these regional trade agreements, which is very important in terms of driving trade activities across the regions, across territories. But for the world we're in, everybody has to work together on common agendas. There are a lot of different issues, but we have to rise above some of the issues for the benefit of the humankind. I think we've heard that before, right? So we all need to work together on common issues such as the climate issue, for example. Everybody agrees on that, and we must all work together. It's not about a specific country, it's not about a specific organization, it's not about specific business, it's about all of us working together in order to drive the right solution and deliver the commitment that we've all made together. So in our organization, we've just put out a report for the APEC CEO Summit, and we focused on 5 success factors, which is critical for driving that development going forward, global development going forward, and specifically for this region, which has significant opportunities and is dated to be the growth engine going forward if we work together, right? And there's an urgency to really focus on working together. And it's good to hear from the President of the Philippines just now. The good news is we work together very well in this region. There's a high level of trust actually, and building that trust is important. But just highlight some of the points in our report to the APEC CEO Summit. We talk about obviously the supply chain resilience that affects the world. How we, with the pandemic impact and everything else, that agility, that building that supply chain resilience is critical to continue to drive global quality growth going forward. Retraining, reskilling of labor is actually very important. With all the changes that's happening, and with obviously the digitization is important and is part of that driving that quality growth going forward. And with digitization, you need to continue to reskill your labor as you move forward. So these are just some of the points that we put forward and how we're helping organizations at this point.
Yes, and when we talk about working together, China is actually pushing for some concrete projects with global implications. For example, what's called Belt and Road Initiative. For example, the RCEP, which just started this year. And John, how do you comment on with RCEP and for other free trade agreements like this, how can China bring more benefits to other economies, especially emerging economies?
If I can just focus on a couple of the practical initiatives that we've launched in the context of development of Asia, and come back to that. And it kind of relates a little bit to your question as well just then, with your previous question. So we're intensely practical. We're operating in a digital economy. We also know that there's potential fracturing in the digital economy. We know that one of the big issues there is how do you make the digital economy work for everyone? And of course, one of the issues that is confounding people is how do you get appropriate standards to support that? The ICC, we're huge. We're also capable of actually delivering standards. We've created Incoterms, we've created the whole concept of private arbitration. We're now creating digital standards. We've launched our digital standards initiative in Asia Pacific. We actually have it in Singapore at our Future of Trade hub there. And one of those issues we've identified quite clearly where China could actually help, I think, is that one of my big kind of bold ambitions is to take the whole of trade from analog to digital. Because at the moment, more than 90% of trade documents, like bills of lading, are still paper-based. I mean, that's a practical issue.
Yes.
And why is that? So we've actually done the work. So we're intensely practical. So we're actually, we've launched a project to actually create the environment to enable the actual movement of bills of lading and other instruments to digital. What's in the way? There's no legal recognition of electronic negotiable instruments. So we've actually created a whole policy plan. We've actually created all the rules for it. We've worked with UNCITRAL to develop model laws, and we're now in the process of getting countries to reform their legal system, which is relatively uncomplicated, to actually do this. We got the G7 to actually adopt our model, and now we want the G20 to do it, and obviously we want APEC to do it. And we think China could be very helpful on that indeed. And I've spoken to CCPIT. ICC is huge in China, and so we would really appreciate Chinese support for that, because that will actually lower the cost of trading on the digital platform, but lowering the cost more broadly and actually make it more available. The other areas, we curated ICC most of the trade finance market, which is huge. So we curate about $10 trillion worth of trade finance through ICC instruments. We're actually aligning all those instruments now to ensure that trade finance can also support the Sustainable Development Goals and actually sustainable trade finance. So we've been working with 400, 500 banks, insurers and other players to create the standards to do that. At Sharm el-Sheikh, I actually launched the first wave of the project, a series of pilots, and we would love Chinese banks to come on board with that as well. We've got some, but we'd like more. We're actually running a pilot at the moment, and I would encourage Chinese listeners and Chinese banks here, if you really want to be practical about changing the world to make it more sustainable, one of the elements, you have to change the financial system, and part of that is ensuring all the elements are aligned to actual action on sustainability. So have a look what the ICC is doing there.
Yes, actually, that also we need more practical, agreements and projects like that. Let's get back to the RCEP topic. I think there's still a lot of things to do under the framework of RCEP. And how do you see RCEP or how do you comment on China's role in bringing more development opportunities for other economies in the Asia-Pacific region?
We like RCEP. I mean, RCEP brings together a very significant part of the global economy. We actually think that some of the criticisms of RCEP are misplaced because it is an evolving agreement which enables an upgrade, I think, of the standards which will operate through the participants there. We would dearly love to see India, and we would really like President Xi Jinping during the G20 to have raised with Prime Minister Modi that it would be really helpful if India also participated in RCEP as well, because it does improve the economic framework and it does make it easier to trade. Ultimately, the ICC is about trade across borders. We actually facilitate that because it's a huge development opportunity. You know that only 1% of SMEs in Latin America actually trade across borders?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're working to enable and give them the strength and give give them the capabilities to do that. Think of the development, the economic development that's missing there. There's much more happening in Asia Pac, but there are still parts of this economy where SMEs, which are frankly 85% of the Asia Pacific economy, are not given all the tools and support to actually trade across borders. RCEP makes it easier. TPP or the CTPP makes it easier as well.
Yes. You just mentioned the CPTPP, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. China has also applied to join this partnership in 2021, and of course, this is one of the world's biggest multilateral trade agreements. Of course, the process is still ongoing. And Raymond, how do you see the significance or the necessity of China's participation in this?
Same thing. RCEP is important. This is just as important. These are one of the largest trading agreements, and it's going to facilitate trade activities. So it's got to be a good thing. But I think John's mentioned it right. I mean, there are things to continue to work on and be more inclusive, hopefully, at the end of the day. But look, this has got to be the right thing to do, and hopefully the process can move a lot quicker, because it's just going to generate more trade activities for everybody. It's going to be more embracing, more inclusive, and create hopefully more opportunities for everybody.
Okay, so
what I like about the Chinese application to actually participate in that group is that it's an acknowledgement, first of all, if you look at the quality, that's a very high quality agreement, okay, so it deals with state-owned enterprises, it deals with rules around digital. It's actually the highest quality agreement operating. China knows that if it wants to join that agreement, it actually has to ensure that it's able to align the way its economic arrangements operate within its borders, which will require reform. If in applying, it actually encourages and makes it possible to drive even further economic reform in China, which is such a critical part of the global economy. But absolutely, when you look at APEC, where I think China is the principal trading partner for every single economy, perhaps not Philippines, but almost every single economy in Asia Pacific, it's actually important for us to see China's growth path continue. And we want the property sector issues resolved in China, but we also want to see this improved focus on actually reform inside the borders to ensure economic development continues. And if joining the comprehensive trade agreement will actually facilitate that, that's a good thing for everyone.
Please.
I agree 100% with all of that stuff. If you look at, China is already the largest trading partner with many of the parties today. But with these agreements, it's just going to generate more activities, and it helps to reform some of the reforms that John talked about, because it actually creates the impetus to make some of those reforms.
Well, indeed, during the APEC, we hope that those topics can be more discussed under the framework of this original trade agreements, and of course, we are looking forward to more documents or bilateral cooperations that can be signed during the APEC, right? Okay, so thank you, gentlemen, for joining me for the APEC talks today, and this is the end of this live stream today. And for more on the APEC, CGTN is here. We're here on the ground in Thailand, Bangkok, to give you the latest of the APEC from today to the 19th of November. Please stay tuned, and bye for now.